In March of this year, I headed into the Amazon region with my friend Juliana Leroy, her husband Daniel, and my girlfriend Maisa. We were exploring deep into the state of Maranhão in the north of Brazil. This region has been heavily impacted by deforestation, agriculture, mining, so we drove through oceans of soya, sorghum, saw lots of cattle ranches, lots of deforestation, huge trucks carrying all this material around. But we still found some really amazing places, including this flooded stream on a rural property, which due to the rains was really swollen, but was amazing.
The size of these chickens, these things are velociraptors. Look, compared to the car, look at him. It's like 2.5 feet tall. It is about to start raining. It is thundering. We're just going to test the water parameters. But yeah, the temperature is very nice, but it is about to start raining hard.
I used my neat little archimeter to test the parameters out there, which was really helpful, and a great bit of kit, so I was really happy to have that with me. And I wasn't the only one happy in that nice warm water. The local horses from the household were also enjoying cooling off. Of course, I couldn't wait to get into the water, and it was pretty amazing, despite the visibility not being perfect. As you can see all these tiny fish up here near the surface. If I was in the Pantanal, I'd say there's Chenurabrecon down there. I'm not sure what they are. You see this pike cichlid here, Cretacichla, or Saxatilia, and then a group of Satanoperca, possibly Jurupari, the earth eaters. And they're swimming in these shallow areas, which normally are not really underwater, but due to the heavy rains had filled up. And there's a group of dogfish, Ancestropithecus here. These are really amazing predators, very fast, lots of sharp teeth, great at snapping up small tetras. The tetras you can see here, these are Bryconops, these are sort of insectivorous species, hang under the surface. The main plant that we found there was this Apelanthe granatensis, growing even in shadow underneath a bridge there. And the Bryconops are kind of cool, they'll come up and investigate you and nip at your skin and pull out the old leg hair. I don't begrudge them that. I know these fish from the Pantanal region, and I've seen them jump up to sort of 3 feet or almost a meter out of the water to catch insects in midair. They've got these huge eyes for spotting bugs, and that's why they hang out near the surface. But they're very opportunistic, they'll eat pretty much anything they can, and they're quite beautiful fish. They get to a good size, maybe 10 centimeters. It was fun to try and spot the cichlids. So the Satanoperca, they're really well camouflaged. You can see that sort of brown on the brown leaf litter over the brown plants. They really blend in. And he's just foraging away, searching for macroinvertebrates, small edible organisms and, detritus in amongst that substrate and sifting it through his gills, moving from patch to patch. And it's great to watch cichlids. Oh yeah, and there was a lot of algae. Unfortunately, this is probably due to runoff from nearby agricultural from farms, but that's also one of the reasons you get lots of algae in these places, because of high phosphate levels. In the Pantanal to the south, I've watched Ancestropithecus attacking small tetras, and they charge them up against the bank, and the tetras have nowhere to go except jump out of the water, where birds are waiting to snap them up, and even spiders. It's a hard life to be a small fish. And here are the Satanoperca again. I always try not to stress out fish when I'm following them and give them like a meter or so more of distance. So perhaps the images aren't as good as they could be, but I don't want to chase the fish just to try and get that shot. I'd rather the animal was comfortable and relaxed and looking beautiful. There were other cichlids like these echidens here. I think there were also cyclozoma potentially. I think this is echidens rather than cyclozoma. I may be wrong. Again, I didn't get too close, and identifying things isn't always that easy without checking them out in the lab. And there were lots of tetras, including what I think are gold tetras. So this is the non-paraticized version. They're not gold, and they're quite lively and beautiful. Here's another species that you might encounter in aquatic habitats in Brazil. So the best place often to find cool things, especially if you're just snorkeling, is right in the shallows. and I spotted this group of what I think are Steindyke narina. They were sort of hidden away in the palm fronds, and this is a bottom feeding fish. I don't know if you can just about see them. You can see the orange on the tails there. I'd never seen them with that orange colour. They're really, really gorgeous. But they zipped away into those palm fronds, and again, I didn't want to spook them, but I would have liked to have got a better look at them. But other things come and sort of cruise around, and oh, there's one who's lost his tail. They're probably nipped from a piranha, unfortunately. There were quite a few of these nymphea. I think it's Hugiana. Juliana may correct me, but there were lots and lots of them. Also in the deeper water channels, they were flowing. Again, lots of algae, lots of detritus. You can see this tiny cichlid in there. I thought it might be an epistogramma, but actually I think it may just be a juvenile echidens. Maybe again, someone may know better than me. Oh, and here's a little baby pike cichlid, little Crenocycla or Saxatilia. He was hiding out under this log. I thought it was a tadpole. Here's another of these sort of shallow areas. You can see all these terrestrial plants that have been inundated, and very quickly aquatic plants spring up, like the Icornia, like the Nymphea. You can see all the terrestrial plant roots, those white things, coming up through the substrate, reaching up towards the light. That's quite typical of these habitats, and they become good places for small fishes to hide because they're complex habitats, so they got broken lines of sight, and it's harder for predators to spot them. Speaking of, under that leaf, if you can see, there's a tiny baby pike cichlid just poking his head out, hiding away. Again, I don't want to get too close and scare him, so I just sort of stayed back and waited to see what he would do. He was just watching me from under there. I always enjoy observing cichlids in the wild. They're charismatic, they're charming, they've got interesting behaviours. You can see why they're so popular in aquaria. There's a pike cichlid here and some more, maybe echidens you can see sort of foraging over this transitional area between the stream bed and more marginal planting. One of the fish there has got something in his mouth, possibly a seed. Again, this is what happens during the wet season. Fishes move into these terrestrial zones. They take advantage of all the resources that are there, the habitat, that sort of complex structure. It's a good place to raise offspring, sort of insects, seeds, fruit, detritus. So these are really important habitats, and one of the problems with deforestation and also forest fires, deliberate fires, is that happens in areas that will flood, and then the floods come and it just floods a desert of ash, and there's nothing for the fish to use. And that has huge impacts on fish populations year on year because there's no kind of boom period for them to breed. This was an interesting microhabitat. Under these palm fronds, there's some very cool stuff. And Juliana called me over, and oh yeah, I saw this baby dogfish and I was laughing because he was so cute. His sort of head's way too big for his body. He will, if he's lucky, grow into a vicious, very efficient predator. But right now he's quite cute, although still scary if you're a smaller fish. You see there's a fair amount of detritus that I kicked up. I wasn't trying to make the water turbid, but in these shallow areas it's quite difficult when you're moving around holding a camera. You're sort of walking on your elbows, but I try and have a gentle footprint. And then under the palm fronds, Juliana pointed out that there was an X-ray tetra, and you can just see him there with that beautiful finish, the yellow, the black, the white tip, the red tail. Stunning fish, and really interesting that there was just one. We only saw one, and he's hanging out with some head and tail like tetras, Holopristis celifera there, and gold tetras. So we weren't sure why, just one individual. You always imagine that there might be more, but he was the only one we saw, and I spent quite a lot of time watching him. Look at the colours. I mean, you don't see that in specimens in the aquarium trade. But I think if you bought some and gave them lots and lots of live foods, frozen foods, maybe a habitat like this, plenty of cover, other small fish alongside, they'd probably colour up really nicely. You can see some other cichlids here, echidens down there, maybe cyclosome in the background. There was pike cichlids hanging out. There's one down there, sort of hidden away in the tangled matrix of palm leaves and fronds, and you can see how effective this habitat is. And using palm fronds in a biotope aquarium is a great idea. You can often get them from garden centres, botanic gardens, even zoos. You can go and say, hey, do you have any dried palm fronds I can get my hands on? You can buy them, I'm sure, as well. But anyone looking to recreate a blackwater habitat, have a go with them. So this is slightly more open area. You can see those ferns that are submerged. They seem to survive. They've been underwater for a number of days and seem to be handling it. But again, there's lots of algae, lots of detritus. I filmed on 2 different cameras here, so I've got the GoPro, which is sort of so-so, and I've got my Sony a6700, which is the first time I was using that underwater. And so forgive me if the images aren't the best in the world. I'm still learning. I'm not a professional underwater photographer. I just point and shoot and hope that something comes out. But yeah, you can see how cool the botanicals are here. Shout out to Better Botanicals, who offer these kind of products. In the UK, we've also got Blackwater UK. Worth checking out their website, because they've got all these sorts of seed pods and palm fronds and twigs and stuff that you could use to create a habitat like this. So I enjoy exploring these kind of habitats and just getting in and seeing what's going on. You know, it's cool to see big things like, you know, stingrays and big catfish and stuff, but I'm always so charmed and engaged by the way small fishes use these habitats, how they occupy them, how they use them to find cover, to avoid predators, to find food, to breed, always on the lookout for danger. And yet, you know, they love these kind of tangled jungles of detritus, which I think are really cool. And the cichlids, especially around the base of trees where detritus is pushed up by the current, becomes quite deep. You can see it's a real sort of maze of stuff in there. That's such a perfect habitat for them. When I worked at London Zoo, we had something similar with Cyclozoma, it's the Portelagrensis, and a tank just like that, made of palm fronds that we'd got from the gorilla enclosure, and they loved it. Here's a more open area. You can see the flowers on the plants there, and oh yeah, I'm going back to explore here under the palm fronds, and you can see the gold tetras. So in the wild, only a few individuals are parasitized and become gold, and they're normally predated very quickly because the gold attracts predators, which is the whole point. That's why the parasite does it, so it can complete its life cycle in the guts of the predator. And so non-parasitized individuals, they stay larger. You see them in the hobby and they're often quite grey and a bit drab. You see here in this tank they've got this quite nice gold coppery sheen. So there's 2 gold tetras, then there's the X-ray tetra, and he's bickering with the head and tail light tetra. And it's funny, they've got, I don't know why there's enough room for them, but as you know, tetras can be quite feisty as well. I think that's probably one of my favourite group of fish to keep. So it'd be so easy to set up a tank representing this habitat. You could do it in a 60 centimetre or ideally even in a 90 centimetre slightly larger tank. Loads of palm fronds, loads of seed pods, loads of other botanicals. You can have fairly bright lighting if you like, but not necessary. Group of the gold tetras and the supposedly ugly unparasitized ones. You might throw in a few regular gold tetras as well. Some head and tail light tetras, a couple of X-ray tetras. Gentle flow, as you can see, although the flow's fairly steady, and they're doing that drift picking thing where they're sitting facing the flow, and as potentially edible morsels come past, they nip out to grab at them. There's your biotope right there. It's super simple, quite interesting, and the idea of having that palm frond maybe laying over the top of the tank or fixed to the surface, diffusing the light, especially if you're using one of the LEDs, that creates like a ripple effect. Really, really engaging. The water here wasn't so black water because it was lots and lots of rain in the previous days, so it's quite clear, as you can see, and that's why here's this amazing plant when it's flowering. It's really, really beautiful. I thought it was a kind of bacopa, but no, it's Apelanthe granitensis, and it's blended in there with the Iconias, blended in with these nymphaeas, beautiful nymphaeas, little carpet. Reminds me of Nymphaea gardneriana, but I don't think it is that. Again, this would be quite a simple biotope, you know, even some dwarf pond lilies you could use to create a habitat like this.
Dias de portunhol.
I was sieving and sieving and sieving, and then eventually you do find some things. I had broken the sieve after a while, but I kept coming back to try and catch that X-ray tetra and failing, which was frustrating. I caught some other stuff.
Peguei killifish. Peguei killifish. Ó.
Kili, deixa eu pegar um aqui.
Isso é muito legal.
Deixa eu ver.
Holopristis cellepha.
Ai, foi.
Duas. Crânio. So we've been using, well, I've already managed to break it, a miner's sieve, which is a great technique. You put it under the plants and shake it for catching small fishes in the margins here in Amazonas, and we have caught some interesting things. We caught 2 killifish, probably the same species, maybe some kind of melanohivirus, and if you look how they jump out of the water to escape as if they were fleeing a predator. So if I lift him out, he's probably going to jump out of my hand. Ooh. Look how beautiful that is. And he has, it's a problem on there. He has a lovely little black spot just on the bottom of the tail there, and a sort of purplish brown hue. Really lovely fish. What is he? We don't know. Then we've also got juvenile cichlids. They like to hide in amongst the palm fronds here. I've got 2 Crenicicla of some kind, or Saxatilia, I'm not sure. But you can see it's a young one. So most Crenicicla, most pike cichlids, the juveniles stay with the parents for up to a year. So he's probably, he was on his own, but I did see an adult down there, so his mum might be there. And this is a medium-sized opportunistic predator. Will eat pretty much everything that fits in its mouth. Then we've got another little cichlid in here, which I'll try and catch with my hand. Oh, you see the killifish trying to climb out? Back you go. This other cichlid is, well, there's various echidens here, but it could be Cyclosoma as well. There you go. Tiny little thing. There's loads of these of different sizes in the margins here. And I'm trying to take a picture of him, but he's determined to jump. And they, again, the strategy to escape predators: jump, jump, jump. But the coolest things that we've caught so far, I think, the killifish jumping in, is a fish that a lot of you will probably know. Actually, this is Holopristis cellepha. Used to be Hemigrammis cellepha, the head and tail like tetra. Pretty sure that's what it is, and we've caught quite a few of them here. Then there's also a guppy, a little live bearer. But let's grab the tetra again, because we've got a bunch of them, and should really have brought him in. Okay, let's see if we can get a photo of him as well. And they're lovely fish. And on the caudal peduncle they do have a sort of little light that sort of glows there. Now the other thing we found in there, which I failed to catch, was what we think is an X-ray tetra, which is Holopristis Fristella tetra. And Juliana spotted him, red tail, beautiful patterns on the fins. And he was telling, come on look. And he was living alongside the head and tail like tetras, just under the palm fronds there. And so we thought we'd try and catch him now, but we didn't manage to do that, but that's okay. We've caught other stuff, but maybe we'll have another go. So I thought I would try one more chance with our sieve, the broken sieve, for the X-ray tetra, which needs water. Poor thing. And we got him. And yeah, same place where we saw him earlier. And I thought, let's try one more time. And look how beautiful this creature is. So if I can get him in my hands without hurting him. So look at that red tail, beautiful dorsal finnage, which gives him the name of the X-ray tetra. I'm not going to touch him too much because these little tetras can be quite sensitive. But you see how small he is. So most of the tetras here, they stay much smaller than we see in the aquarium because they just don't get to live that long. You know, they're lucky if they get to live one season and breed once before being eaten or some environmental issue impacts them. But he is lovely, and Juliana saw him and saw how red he was, particularly in the second half of the body. And she said, oh, it's a Serpe tetra, and she got close and then she realised it was something else. And I think it is, Holoperistis pristella. I think it's Holoperistis, unless I've been getting it all wrong. Look at that little dorsal. So that's what gives them the name. And interestingly, we saw just one swimming here, and he was together with some head and tail light tetras and some other small tetras, which I think might be Hemigrammus rodway, gold tetras, but they weren't in the gold coloration. So it's interesting to see, you know, in the aquarium, we said, well, you must keep a group of the species together, at least in a group of 8 or 10, that's often true. But here we see one individual mixing with a mixed species shoal of smaller, similar sized tetras. We've got some underwater footage of this fish, so you guys can see him in his biotope under the palm leaf right there. I think with that we should probably let him go, but isn't that amazing? Come to Brazil, come to the Amazon region and see a tiny little tetra that you've seen in the pet stores back home, and here he is in the wild being beautiful. So I'm going to put him exactly back where I found him. So he was living in this little hollow with the palm fronds overhanging. There's a space under there and there's various tetras that are in there, so we're going to put him back there. Back you go. And he's gone straight back in to that space. That's his place. What was that?
So before we went to have lunch, I wanted to have another go in the water, just swim around the GoPro mostly, and into the deeper areas. See, visibility isn't that great, but look how beautiful those nymphea are. Again, I think it's Hodgiana. It's not available here in the UK or in Europe in the hobby, but fantastic, fantastic plant, and blended in with Tonina fluviatilis in there. I was watching the cichlids again, but with the GoPro again I couldn't get too close. In the margins they were there swimming amongst the detritus covered plants, and they really do disappear, that sort of brown body on the brown background. Here's the Tonina fluviatilis. This is a lovely plant, really dense beds of it. I'd seen it before in the wild, but I'd never seen it in such density, so many. And interesting to see it growing in such flow, covered in algae. It's quite a sensitive plant. It needs quite soft water, lots of CO2, lots of nutrients. In the aquarium it can be quite challenging, and then you always see it growing in the wild, like sort of whatever conditions, it's happy, it doesn't care. I love the way that green blends with the red of the lilies here. You can see the current was quite strong, lots of detritus, and I was being blown away. And here we have these cichlids foraging again, leaving that sort of telltale stream of detritus behind them. That's one of the ways that you know that they're around, so leaves this little trail. So Eliocharis, I think, which is covered in detritus on algae, again probably from agricultural runoff causing so much algae. And I was now really, really hungry, but I had one more round of the area before we got out to eat, and I think even the lilies, when they look completely destroyed, those colours are stunning. So after spending quite a lot of hours swimming around, getting really hungry, and it was threatening more thunderstorms, we got out to have lunch, which was grilled tambaqui, and then we drove back to base and we drove through town. And my favourite food, apart from Brazilian barbecue, is açaí, so we stopped to have açaí, which is amazingly sweet, like sorbet. That was a fantastic day.
Eita, ela cria agora.